I find it fascinating. I haven't been to a conference where you have this idea that you're bringing together these three disciplines, and which in the real world actually do work together, but are perhaps too siloed and maybe should be thought of in a more kind of cross-group and integrated way. So that's new, actually, I would say. For this kind of thing, you'd see a conference to focus on what legal issues or on creative issues, but to have it all together, it's interesting to see how there's a lot of crossover. So that's something I'm getting out of it, and it's interesting to hear from for example, this morning we had a lot of the creative folks, so to hear how they view legal services, for example. It's actually very interesting to hear that. So, and hopefully, others are getting the same kind of thing out of it as well. So I kind of touched on this, I think, in my presentation, but there are, and perhaps sometimes it's well deserved, but there's, lawyers have a reputation for being blockers and to say no and to be the people who come in and basically destroy the people's innovative plans. But at Microsoft, we really can't do that because we wouldn't really go anywhere. I think a lot of regulated industries, perhaps in banking and other energy fields where really lawyers are considered to be sort of compliance officers first and foremost, those are industries where probably that's perhaps the role of the lawyer. For us, really, we, as I mentioned in the presentation, the company really is made up of IP. I mean, it's made up of people as well, but it's really about the intellectual property that gives the company its value. And so our job is super important because the business can't really function without guidance and around business models, around how do you protect what it is that they're creating. It's just an integral part. And it's sort of part of my presentation was I was a little surprised at the premise, the question for the panel, which is, IP as part of the innovation process, when, how, where. And my response was always and every time, in every situation. It really needs to be everywhere. And that's kind of what we do. I mean, the thought that you'd actually have sort of a separate process for IP as part of the innovation process is a little foreign, I think. And I didn't realize that until the question was posed. But, we're there. I mentioned that we're co-located with our clients. We sit in the same buildings. We sit right next door to the folks who lead the group. In most cases, we try to get ourselves invited to all of the sort of meetings that happen regularly. We try to basically have ourselves be thought of as part of the team, as sort of somebody who comes and adds value to the meetings. And frankly, if once you start doing that, and then you do add value, it just happens, and you're seen then as a valuable member of the team, and then pretty soon you're just completely integrated. There's no sort of seam between the innovation process and lawyers and others who are looking out, not only lawyers, but others who are looking out for how to protect that innovation. Co-location is one, literally being physically present, close to in my case, the clients. Just because if you're always on the phone, or if you're located remotely and have to basically transport yourself to meet with the clients, you're going to miss something. And also, you'll be thought of as an outsider more often than not if you're actually away. So that's one thing. Another thing is, again, learning the rhythm of the business for the innovation groups, so that if they do have regular meetings, or if they have reviews or other things, you're part of that. You're considered part of their sort of V team, if you will. And if they're thinking about their team, if the executive or the general manager or research manager, whoever it is thinking, what is my team? They're thinking, well, I have an HR person who helps me hire great people and supports the people I have. I have a good finance person who can, help me navigate the finance issues around, running my organization. But you also want to be, you also want them to think of their lawyer or their legal professional. We actually use a lot of paralegals as well. You want them to think of their legal professional as part of that team as well, as an integral part of it. Somebody who, needs to be there to hear the plans from the very beginning, needs to hear about new ideas from the very beginning, before it gets too far down the road and you've basically given up certain opportunities. So for various reasons, startups aren't going to aren't going to be pursuing as much, IP protection, for example, as a large company. But then on the other hand, sometimes they actually forgo future opportunities if they're not careful about those issues, if they haven't thought through their issues. I mean, I usually counsel some of the startups I work with to sort of have a plan at least and have thought through these issues and have at least some triage, sort of order of a wish list, if you will. We should at least be doing this. And some IP protection doesn't cost anything, copyrights, for example, although you may want to register certain ones. And then you look at the next level and say, do we have a technology that is really the core of this company, that if others did this and we couldn't stop them, our company wouldn't really be worth much. And if there's those cases, then perhaps you should prioritize that over, an office lease or some other kind of thing. But they have to, to make choices. But maybe you can't avoid thinking about this. You really do have to think about it. Versus at a big company where we just do everything. Well, not absolutely everything. We do have budgets and stuff, but we can do a lot more. Whereas they have to make a lot of choices about that kind of thing. So they have to figure out where in their innovation process it actually makes sense. And probably having a plan in the beginning and knowing where they're going and when they should bring in, whether it's an outside lawyer or whoever, it's helpful for them probably so that they don't wait too long to do that. Actually, I'll take that question, even though that's not necessarily, it kind of sort of stems more off the first panel. I think people may not think of lawyers as the most creative people or the most creative profession, but I actually disagree a little bit. I think a lot of times when we want to help our clients, do the kinds of projects they want to do, you really have to apply some creativity to it. That's actually one of the parts that I find most fun. And whether it's thinking about how to solve a particular legal issue or a business model or whatever it is, there is, I think, a level of creativity required even for practice of law. If all you brought to the table was the ability to analyze a particular set of facts with a particular set of laws, I think that you're only extracting about half the value out of what someone can provide. So I think creativity is very important, especially a lot of cutting edge industries. You have to bring a lot of creativity to the table to really to be able to enable your clients to do their best.